82 games in the books. And then there's this mystique surrounding the Miami Heat of not wanting to see them in the postseason. And I guess, rightfully so. Well, now the Philadelphia 76er fans gear up for their team to face them in the playoffs, to play in the 7-8 matchup here in Philadelphia on Wednesday night. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, along with, as always, Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck, I'm Devon Givens. Bree is here producing. All of you hanging out with us here in the chat on this Monday, the day after the Sixers win their 8th consecutive game, but they still have to earn their way into the playoffs, Kyle, because it's not good enough. Derek, last year you said the 6th seed was the Brooklyn Nets. They had 46.
Yeah.
We didn't think the Sixers would even reach that number.
Yeah.
They go past the number and still have to fight their way in.
No, everybody focused on the whole shoe comment, which, by the way, I just want to celebrate one day of being safe of eating a shoe. Don't have to.
I was so ready to tweet the meme of Adam Silver that somebody altered to say, "Get ready to eat shoe, buddy." That I was so excited to post that, and that was taken from me by fucking Doc Rivers.
Marked one day safe of not having to worry about eating a shoe. The other statement I made was you go like 10 and 13 over the next 23 games, and then you run off 7 or 8 in a row at the end, and it followed pretty much that exact script where they won almost exactly 10 games there, and then they ripped off 8 in a row, and it still wasn't enough because we did have that conversation of last year, the last couple of years, 45, 46 wins should get you into the 6th seed. They were just off. They were 1 game away from reaching that mark, but they did do everything they possibly could to try to salvage a 6th seed to avoid this play-in tournament because it is a situation where, look, we're going to talk about fear and whatnot and healthy respect or however you want to phrase it. I have a healthy respect for the Miami Heat.
What did Brett used to say? Appropriate fear was his phrasing.
I have a healthy amount of respect for the Miami Heat and what they've done over the last 4 years. How could you not? I have fear of a 1-game play-in scenario because there's so much variability. There's so much randomness in this sport, and you're at the mercy of the shooting variance gods. I don't love that, but I don't fear the Miami Heat. I respect the Miami Heat.
Kyle, I remember when the Sixers played the Toronto Raptors in the first round matchup 2 playoffs ago, and they played them, and Nick Nurse, of course, still being there. I remember doing Toronto radio, and the one thing that they kept asking was about why does everybody feel so confident with the Sixers over the Raptors? I'm like, guys, the Sixers are better, but there's a fear of the Toronto Raptors and Nick Nurse and how he plays against Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. And that really goes to where we are right now. As Derek says it, you respect the Miami Heat. As we said, there's this fear factor, and Sixer fans and the mystique again, look, they've gone to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times. They got into 2 NBA Finals, and Jimmy Butler has been the leader of that with Erik Spoelstra as the head coach, who's a Hall of Fame coach, the best in the game, as Kyle has said many times here on this show. You respect the opponent, but when you look at the 76ers, you still say, hey, guys, you're still better.
Yeah, I will say this to start off this conversation of should we show reverence, fear, however you want to frame it for Miami. They are probably a bit undersold simply because, like the Sixers, they lost a lot of games to their important players due to injury, right? Jimmy Butler only played, I believe, 59 games this year.
60 total.
60 total.
Yeah.
Right in that. Tyler Hero, I believe, only played about half the season this year. Now, Tyler Hero has issues on defense that I think they can almost be more of themselves without Hero. But in terms of the shot creation you need in the playoffs and certainly to beat good teams in the regular season, he's a very important guy. So maybe you give them slight benefit of the doubt, right? That the offense can be a little bit better. And their defense, no matter what they've gone through in terms of injuries and trades and what have you, the defense is always very good. That's one thing you credit Bam, you credit Jimmy, you credit Erik Spoelstra for. At the end of the day, you have to look at the whole picture and say the Sixers have the guy who should be the best player, whether it's in an individual game or a series, and they have the better team. They have a team that is well suited to play around Joel Embiid. And if Joel Embiid is healthy and plays at the level he's capable of playing, they should win this game. It's on their home floor. Joel, as we were told at practice today, after the game yesterday, full participant, feeling good. Kelly Oubre said to us today at practice, he came in with a level of seriousness that's different from the regular season. is gearing up for this game. So all signs point to the Sixers should win. A lot of the fear of Miami is rooted in, I can't say irrational, because they have proven that they're able to raise their level in the playoffs. I think Derek has brought this up many times. The real fear comes from one game and one game only. You go into a game against Miami, doesn't matter where it is, Haywood Highsmith could hit 8 threes. Jaquez Jr. could get a favorable matchup depending on how these teams structure their lineups. He could post up Kyle Lowry on 4 straight possessions on a switch, go on a big run, and that's that. Jimmy Butler could hit a bunch of threes. Duncan Robinson could get hot. You never know. And the flip side of that is that could happen for the Sixers as well. And they could ride that and the additional talent that I think they have in order to beat them. But the Heat have consistently been able to raise their level in these moments, save for when Bryn Forbes outperformed Jimmy Butler in a playoff series that everybody memory hold because of all else that they've achieved over the last few years. But the Heat culture thing, as much as I roll my eyes at it, has proven itself to be real in these moments where they get across from whether it's a poorly built team, a little more mentally frail team, a team with worse coaching in the playoffs. They've been able to run over teams that are better than them on paper in games that matter. And so while I will sit here and tell you the Sixers are better, they should win, I will pick them to win on Wednesday night, there is that nagging voice in the back of your head that says all it takes is 5 to 7 bad minutes against the 2-3 zone, and that game could flip in an instant.
Well, and you brought it up. You know, there is a Miami zone. They take away shots at the rim a lot. Those should be the most consistent shots in your arsenal. They give up a lot of threes. 3rd most threes overall, 3rd most corner threes. In theory, if you're making your shots, you have a chance to win big. But if you're having an off night, that variability that we talked about with the shot, that's always going to be there. How Miami plays just kind of plays into that. And it could snowball real quickly, especially because they then typically win the possession battle. If you're missing your shots, they're just going to embolden their zone. They're going to force turnovers, not necessarily get out on the break because they're super slow paced, but they're going to, like I said, win the glass, win the possession battle, and you have to make your shots. They're just going to have to make their shots.
And in the last meeting in Miami, I think that was what jumped out to me the most. I don't think that Miami's zone did anything to actually bother them. In fact, I thought shots. They picked it apart with their passing, their positioning. I think, one, Joel's gotten more comfortable as the guy in the middle of that zone, making the reads, hitting his shooters. Frankly, they have lineups that have 4 catch-and-shoot guys on the floor at any given time, which is very useful. You also can use somebody like a Nick Batum in the middle of that zone where you get it to him, and I trust him to make on-time passes, on-target passes. And also, if he gets left alone there, he can hit a short little mid-range jumper and pick that apart. So I trust him more there than a lot of other guys, either starting or off the bench, than they would have put there in the past. But you do have to hit those shots. And some of the guys who will be entrusted to make those shots, like Kelly Oubre, for example, are streaky shooters. Like Kelly, for all the good he's done down the stretch, he's not someone that, okay, open, catch and shoot 3, that's a guaranteed make, right? Like even Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield had a great end of the regular season in that final game, and you would hope he carries that into the playoffs, but he's got to make shots in the playoffs, which doesn't have experience doing, right? He's been on bad teams, bad or mediocre teams throughout his career. So this is going to be a big prove-it moment for guys like him. And Miami, for like all the accumulated playoff experience they have for their top guys, they're not walking into this game with any fear of whether it's Joel, the rest of the guys on the team. They will carry themselves with confidence. The Sixers need to be able to weather storms, to figure things out against, like, if they do run dry against the zone for 3-4 minutes and they're getting good shots, but they're missing them, they have to trust their offensive process, right? Because the worst thing you can do is run good offense against the zone, miss shots, and then start forcing up shots and doing stupid shit and not trusting the scout, the game plan, and what you know they can do to break this team down. So a lot of it is the mental side of it, where you have to remain confident even if the shots are not falling for you, because once you show Miami a little bit of blood, they will punish you and they will turn what could be a close game or a close lead for you into a double-digit lead for them on the other way.
So that's where I lean, and I go to one of the things I look at when I look at that these teams is the Miami Heat are very good, and they should be feared in a sense. There's a certain amount of fear you should have for them. But the other part is, again, as I started and said it, that the 76ers are better. So with it, my thing leans more towards like it has in the past. What are you doing to beat yourself? What are you doing to overcome the issues that the other team, of course, is going to present to you?
Yeah.
But how are you responding to that? As Kyle just laid it out. But that's the thing for me, because this team has been good for a long time. And a lot of times we have discussed it many times, whether it's written form, audio, video, whatever it has been, that they have been in Game 5, we can point out. Game 7, we can point out. Game 6 in this particular series, we can point out. We can point out this one in 2018 and 2019. We can run through the gamut of the issues that they've had as to why they have not advanced. And while it has been the opponent, certainly, we also look at what they did to themselves, whether it's the turnovers, not handling the zone the right way, or stepping out of bounds where just simply something really stupid, or a guy who we expect to do something much more in the offensive end shoots 4 times. Things like that. Those things hurt you when it comes to these types of scenarios, and certainly when you get to a one-game series against one of the more feared teams in the NBA in any series, but you get in a one-game play-in situation against that Miami Heat team, of course there's going to be the necessary respectful fear with this opposition. You couple the coach, the player who you wanted to stay here versus the guy who is still here, and the success that they have had together. And that's why a lot of people look at it. But again, if they do what they're supposed to do and handle their responsibility the right way, then they should advance past this Miami Heat team. And again, I'm not looking past them and just saying, hell, let's go to New York right now and then skip past New York. No, I am paying attention with the healthy amount of respect that I feel like I should have for the Miami Heat. But in the end of the day, when we pick the game and we discuss it, I'm going to say the 76ers should win this game, because you will have the best player, even at 80%, whatever he might be. We'll talk about that a little bit later with the practice, the guys being at practice. But you should have still the best player on the floor, and you have to execute in order to win.
And Kyle brought it up. I think if this game gets away from them, it's because it came out, Miami went to a zone. Miami plays more zone than anyone in the league. We looked up before the show. 13% of their possessions come in a zone. Next closest team is 10%. The Sixers are actually 4th highest zone usage in the league, and they were half of what Miami runs. So Miami runs a lot of zone, a lot more than most teams. I think a lot of people look at that as like Miami's way of shutting teams down. No, actually, Miami gives up more points per possession when they're in a zone than they do when they're playing man-to-man. The thing is, when they do go to a zone, if it causes you to struggle, then it could cause you to second-guess stuff, cause you to,
it's a snowball effect.
Yeah. So like some games, it'll come out and you'll shoot them out of it real quickly, and the per possession numbers will be awful. Some games it will snowball and you'll be completely off of your game plan. You cannot start forcing stuff if you miss some open shots.
The weird thing about Miami too, especially this year's team, when you dive into the different splits and whatnot, you think of them as, well, they shouldn't really be a half-court offense team. But their half-court offense has been better than their overall offense and their transition offense. They're a defense-based team that doesn't push pace. Miami, the way that they beat you is to get into rock fights with you, essentially. They want to sit back, play slow, play through Jimmy, play through Bam at the elbows, tap into his playmaking. You get one of their shooters hot, maybe Duncan Robinson, maybe Tyler Hero. Last year it was Caleb Martin, who caught the most ungodly heater of any player ever, I think, because that's not a guy who's a good shooter that just had a good run. That's a guy who's been a mediocre to bad shooter who shot like 50% from 3 and 60+% from the field in the conference finals against the team that everyone assumed was going to walk past them and go to the finals in the Boston Celtics. So there is a weird factor there, but it's so hard to get a handle on Miami because the numbers don't inherently make sense in a lot of ways. You would think a team that wants to bunker down and get stops and play a defense game really wants to hit you on the break and really wants to run, but that's not who they are. And so to me, the key for the Sixers is to not let Miami play this game on their terms. You want to stop them on the other end of the floor so that you can run, so that they can't get back and get set, so that the zone never becomes a factor in the game. And as Derek added on to, you don't want to let doubt creep into your mind, because that's where they really prey on you. We talked to these guys at practice today, and they say the zone differs in a way where the pickup points for their zone are higher. They want to get into you. And so it's a more physical zone than you'll see when you play some other teams. I think the other thing that gives me confidence against the zone specifically, but just against Miami generally, the point guard for this team now, one, is a guy who's not afraid to shoot the ball, but two, when he's not the on-ball focal point, which will be quite often against his zone defense, Tyrese is still as valuable, and in fact might be even more valuable as an off-ball catch-and-shoot release valve, which was not the case with James Harden, right? Like, James Harden made a difference in terms of the beating guys off the dribble, running pick and rolls, doing all that stuff. That was a big upgrade from Ben Simmons to Harden. But the difference between Harden and Tyrese Maxey is that when you get in a post-up heavy world with Joel Embiid, or you're throwing the ball to Joel or somebody in the middle of a zone, Tyrese in the corner or Tyrese on the wing is still posing a ton of danger to the opposing team. And Miami can't fall asleep. They can't just sell out completely to stop Joel Embiid, to force the ball out of his hands, because you might have four other guys on the floor, Tyrese Maxey more specifically, who's ready to catch and shoot. And on open catch and shoot threes is like a 40 to 45% bet to make that open three. And then you got Buddy Hield, and then you got Nick Batum. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they'll have Melton, but they have a lot of guys who can punish you if you sell out too hard to protect the paint and stop Joel Embiid. So that gives me more confidence against Miami and their zone than in years past. But again, it only takes one bad stretch for everything to unravel.
Yeah. I'll add to the zone really quickly is that when you look at, we talk about the middle of the zone to find, to make the pass, to make the right decision. You also talk about his backcourt mate now, Kyle Lowry, who's not afraid to make the right pass. Oftentimes we say, okay, hit the guy in the middle, but they're afraid to make the pass. Just a simple pass. Yes.
And Batum helps with that a ton too.
Exactly.
Great entry
so
passer.
now you have Kyle Lowry, who knows how to make a simple entry pass where he's not afraid. He knows it. He knows where he's going immediately when the ball is making his way, and he drops it off to them.
There is one guy I'm a little worried about on that front.
Look, having two entry passers on this team, I used to dream for times like this. It is wild to talk about.
Okay, Meek Mill.
So now you have them.
All right.
What else do you have?
Well, I can say if the Sixers make their threes on Wednesday, I think you can take that win to the bank. You can also go to if you're looking for any kind of banking, we want to tell you about TruMark. Heard from a number of people recently who joined TruMark Financial Credit Union right here in Philly, and it's been an eye-opening experience, the difference between banking at a bank compared to becoming a member of a credit union. When you join a credit union like TruMark Financial, you become part owner, which means profits come back to you instead of going to shareholders. TruMark Financial has better rates, lower fees, a better return on savings, and more flexible options overall, and of course the same digital tools and technology we all want. But the best part for me is TruMark Financial is local. They're headquartered in Fort Washington, and with 24 branches across the Philly area, they are deeply rooted in our community. They serve our community and only our community, so their investments and programs help our people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a bank, it's a total no-brainer. Head over to TruMark.com/PHLY to learn more or find a branch near you. That's TruMark.com/PHLY, federally insured by the NCUA.
And this episode is brought to you by our good friends from Manscaped. And with April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, our friends over at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Did you know 1 man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? In fact, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst men aged 15 to 35. So visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to check yourself for early signs of cancer. And as always, you can use promo code PHLY for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. And I wanted to share a little bit more, as I've talked about this in the past, and I keep saying it over and over again when we talk about Manscaped and April being Testicular Cancer Month. It's not just testicular cancer. It's cancer in general that can affect so many families, myself included. I've dealt with it. I'm sure many of you have out there as well. And you always want to make sure your friends and your loved ones are taken care of. And with this in mind, you can perform simple routine self-checks at home while Manscaped products for use every day, like the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra that I have at home myself. And it makes sense, right? We use these products daily to trim and maintain our boys down there. So you should too. The Lawnmower 5.0 features 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little bit off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth and sleek as well. With the dual LED spotlights, you'll achieve better visibility so you see exactly what's going on, making sure you don't have any nicks and cuts there that you don't need, making every trim more precise and hassle-free. You can bring this trimmer wherever you go, thanks to its wireless charging capabilities and the travel lock feature. Plus, they have this little cool bag that you can put all of the accessories and everything in the bag to make your travel easier. In addition to providing the right tools and solutions for comfortable and easy grooming, Manscaped is committed to raising awareness and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer. That is why they will be donating $50,000 to the Testicular Cancer Society. It's a big donation there. Hope that you can help out too. Help save lives and balls by going over to manscaped.com/TCS and sharing their funny, educational, check yourself video. And while you're at it, grab 20% off plus free shipping with code PHLY, because like a famous American philosopher once said,
take care of your balls
your
and
mentals, your balls, and your chickens. Thank you, Kyle.
I'm just anticipating it now. By the way, we had YTube saying H.H. Hatter alum checking in. That's my high school, so I don't know who you are, YTube.
That's Hapro, right?
Hapro Horsham, yeah. The home of Matt and Pat Carroll, 2 best basketball players.
Good basketball players right there, man.
Would that be Kyle Neubeck in third?
No, definitely not. I always tell people, my frame of reference for when people talk trash about, oh, this guy stinks on an NBA team, Matt was broke in with the Spurs, and then he had I think like a 3, maybe 4-year run with the Bobcats, now the Hornets. And he was, like a bench role player, shooter type guy. You put him on a normal pickup game floor, and that guy looked like fucking Michael Jordan. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just promised somebody I would try not to curse, but he looked like effing Michael Jordan on that court. So, and shout out to Pat, who was on that great St. Joe's team with Jameer, Delonte, the rest of those guys.
Yeah, when he was at Notre Dame, it was like, oh, okay. And he just kept getting better and better and better. And certainly you root for the local guys to get a shot. He got a shot, and he stuck around for a little bit. That shooting will keep you in the league, man. Oh, yeah.
He told me some great stories about, what's that from Woj? Mark Daigneault is the National Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year. I believe, by the way, that was my prediction prior to the season. Not that we're getting into
the right call. It's the right call.
Matt told me some great stories about Tim Duncan from his very brief time in San Antonio. I will share them at another time, but it drove home the way Tim Duncan treated a end of bench role player guy breaking into the league. That's why the Spurs were so successful. It's because he took every little detail of being a team leader very seriously.
Yeah, and it's the anniversary of St. Joe's making that run.
Yes, sir.
Delonte and Jameer.
I still can't believe that John Lucas shot, man.
That's the tournament lure, man. It just that thing hovering over the court where somebody had to make it, and Jameer had a shot. But yeah, tough one. All right, we still have to talk about also with you guys being at the practice. We'll get to our super chats as well, but just looking again with the fear factor, looking at a lot of the chats though with people in here, they're like, yeah, so what? Come on. Be confident in your basketball team. That's where a lot of the chat is going, Derek. There are a good portion of people who feel good, but last night, yesterday afternoon, when you and Rich were doing the show and Kyle checked in from the arena, there were a number of scared 76er fans knowing that they had to have the play-in against Miami.
Look, first of all, it's not my I don't think it's our job to not project confidence or project fear. We can just break it down as honestly as we can. I tried to do that. I think everyone else does as well. But if I was if I was MIA Heat right now doing a show, I'd be like, well, shit, they're going up against a team that just won 8 in a row, has a 31-8 record with Joel Embiid, has a reigning MVP, best player in the league. Weird stuff could happen because it's one game, but you have to have an appropriate level of respect for them too. Like I said, I think we've all been like, I'm not going to tell you that they're going to win because weird stuff can happen. Spo's incredible. Jimmy's incredible. Yada, yada, yada. Shooting variance. But I think you should be confident in your team too. Like everything is a 65-35 chance at best, probably 60-40 more realistic. The 40% will always scare you, but you should be confident in your team because they have done enough and gotten themselves back health-wise that they should be the favorites, and pretty strong favorites, I think.
Yeah. I do want to say this because you brought up his name. I feel like we've skimmed over him a little bit. Playoff Jimmy is a real thing.
Completely
mostly because Jimmy does not go all out in the regular season, right? Like Jimmy Butler, regular season Jimmy Butler is still a very good, occasionally great player, right? But I don't know if there's a better example in the league of someone who takes the regular season not that seriously than Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I was talking with the guys about this before the show. The thing that's most remarkable to me about the difference between regular season Jimmy and playoff Jimmy, he just takes the ball and shoots more. Like it's a very simple,
almost twice as much.
Yeah, like his usage goes from, and not to spoil it, I'm writing a thing about the Heat that should be live either later today or if not, first thing tomorrow morning. He goes from like a Jeremy Grant-esque usage to Donovan Mitchell, which is to say he goes from a guy who can often just be a play finisher to a ball dominant offensive hub, run the offense through this guy type of player. And that's been the last couple of years. They've been on long playoff runs, and that has held true both of those years. And so that's really hard to factor in, right? It's easy to say, okay, they play this amount of zone defense, they shoot the three like this, they assist this many plays, or they assist this percentage of their total shots. It's hard to say, yeah, Jimmy's just going to give a shit more and like price that into how you predict a game is going to end up. I don't know how you sit there and say, all right, well, Jimmy's going to care this much more. And so Miami is this much better. And it's such an unknown. I can sit here and tell you Spo is great and Spo makes adjustments and Spo on an organizational level. So from Pat Riley through Spoelstra, through Jimmy, through Bam, I don't say that they ignore the regular season, but they care a lot more about the tinkering and the lineup changes and working on things for April, May, and June more than, for example, a Doc Rivers-led team. Doc Rivers is trying to maximize wins in the short term. The Heat don't ignore wins. They certainly want to win as many games as they can, but I think Spoelstra, as a general rule, cares about the process behind how they get to mid-April as much as he does, they win 50 games or they win 45 games or whatever it is. So the Jimmy factor is just such a mystery. We know that he will get up for this game. We know he's going to look at Tobias Harris across from him, and it's like a bull seeing red. Like everyone heard it. Tobias Harris over me, even though that's kind of a nonsense comparison that Jimmy just has in his head, and good on him for that, using whatever he can for motivation. Playoff Jimmy is a real thing, and it's absolutely, I wouldn't say it's at the top of my list of fears, because I think Spo and his ability to just fuck with you and tinker with the team and what have you is number one on my list. But I absolutely have proper respect, maybe even fear, of Jimmy Butler in a 7-game series, let alone a one-and-done environment where he could just completely control the game. And oh, by the way, takes good enough care of himself that he could play 48 minutes and I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yep. Last 2 playoff runs for Jimmy, which, by the way, it's a 39-game sample. It's a pretty good sample. 27.1 points per game, 5.3 assists, 3.7 three-point attempts per night. Over the last 3 years, which is the same time frame, you just haven't had this playoff run in there yet, 21 points per game, and he shoots 2 threes per night. So he legitimately doubles his 3-point usage.
The pull up against the Nuggets in the championship to win it, right call by him.
He loves that pull up.
I know
he loves that. But we saw that like twice in a couple game span when he first got here. I don't.
But that was for the championship.
Yeah, no.
That's why
look,
I'm asking.
I'm not usually a huge fan of the player goes ISO and just pulls up, but he does have a track record where it's hard to.
And he's one where it doesn't affect him. He can live with it, knowing that. Listen, I was.
He does not lack confidence,
not at all,
or belief in himself.
Nobody loves Jimmy more than Jimmy loves Jimmy,
Yeah.
and I say that with a lot of respect because you don't get to the level that he's at without a lot of self-belief.
So when he was here and he started doing the Jimmy thing in the regular season, and I was one of them, I was guilty of, why is he not shooting? Not that they couldn't win with Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, and Joel Embiid before Tobias Harris got here, but I was
just went like a month without shooting a three.
He just did not shoot the basketball.
No.
And it was like, dude, you're finishing the game with 12 points. And yes, it was a close win and you got the win. But then there's the one that you had the 12 points and they lost and it was a close loss. Why are you not shooting more? And I didn't see this coming later on, where this was the reason. I didn't pay enough attention while I watched him in Chicago and certainly saw him in Minnesota for that brief time that he was there. But I didn't know this was his strategy of this was how I want to do it. And he has taken that, Kyle, and just elevated it to, again, leaving Philadelphia, going to Miami, going to Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals, and doing it his way, getting into the fight with the coach. And still, I was like, yo, he's out of here after that. And no, they didn't, because he's that good. But I didn't see it this way when he was.
The way,
yes, absolutely.
For being able to set aside.
Yeah.
Now,
they can fight right there in that moment, but he knew that they can get past that. They can get by that. But I just didn't see this being what it was for Jimmy Butler when he was here and even when he left.
Yeah, look, I think the big concern at the end of Jimmy's tenure in Philly was how does he age over this contract? Because at the time, he had come off of a lot of time with Tibbs in Chicago and in Minnesota, for that matter, because he had the brief stop through there. And he put all those, he is like a 40-minute-a-night guy at times when he's in Chicago. So the concern was, okay, the workload will catch up to him. It's just a matter of when. And Jimmy had some never like a real serious injury, but some like you're hearing tendonitis, sore this, sore that, and he's carrying that into postseason runs. And you say, well, how does he age? And what does that contract look like in 4 years? Well, down there in Miami, where they are absolutely maniacal about fitness and conditioning and what have you, and Jimmy was independent of them, but that synced up well with him. And yet on top of that, I think it was the first time I noticed it. I don't know if it was always like this, and I just missed it while he's in Chicago and Minnesota. But that year with the Sixers, it felt like he really dialed into, okay, I need to get to this level in the regular season and maintain that so that when we hit the playoffs, I can be up here. Like I have another level I can go to and get to consistently. And he's done that masterfully, right? Like not playing as many minutes, not playing as many games. The usage is down, the shots are down, and then all of a sudden mid-April starts and here comes Jimmy Butler. So it's a hard line to walk. It takes guys generally a long time to figure out the balance between I got a gun for it in the regular season and I got to save something. But he's somebody who I think is, if he hasn't mastered it, he's come close to mastering it.
Yeah.
No, he absolutely has. He's that good, and that's why there's the fear factor when it comes to the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers, because he is that tough, man. And you look up at the end of the game, he played 46 minutes and 35 seconds, and it's no problem. He'll take advantage of it on those TV timeouts, that they call, and all of that. Yeah, make sure you go PHLY, folks, sign up and subscribe. Do all of that. Kyle has a story upcoming as a diehard member. You get a chance to read that. And he teased it a little bit just a short time ago. So when you sign up to become a member of the Die Hard, you get to read both of these guys' work along with Bo and Zach and Charlie, and we're also adding Jim Salisbury, starting
the legend
soon.
himself.
Yeah, starting very soon. So you get all of that, becoming a member of the Die Hard, special events that we have, merchandise. You get a lot of perks becoming a member of the Die Hard. All right, when we come back, we'll get some notes from the practice today. First playoff practice for the 76ers.
For that, we want to make sure we tell you about Game Time. If you're looking to get to the game on Wednesday or, God forbid, a game on Friday if they do need a second play-in
Or the Bad
game.
Bunny concert that's scheduled for Friday at the Wells Fargo
We'll see what happens
Center.
with that. Or the game Friday, which I think we're all hoping that you're not going to need. But if you do, Game Time is the place to go. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and a best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest-growing ticket app in the country for a reason. With Game Time, you get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set with tickets sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And guys, whether you're at the arena, sitting at home, you're at a bar, wherever you might be, watching this game on Wednesday, and hopefully some real playoff games in the future, you're going to be anxious. There's going to be a lot of tough moments. You're going to be stressing out, yelling at somebody next to you, yelling at the refs, yelling at your loved ones potentially. I wouldn't advise doing that. You know, keep the home problems, and the sports problems. But you can choose a better way, a chiller way, by reaching for an ice-cold Coors Light as we head into the postseason. With Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice-cold, refreshing beer because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans when they hit that perfect temperature. I believe we have some events coming up with Coors Light where you'll be able to choose chill potentially along with us. We'll have to see about that. But if you're not with us and you're just living vicariously through the stream, sitting at home, hanging out with your friends, I know that you can reach for an ice-cold Coors Light, which will be cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged for a smooth finish. You can get that mountain cold refreshment. I know the most important thing on your minds this playoff run potentially is that the Denver fans will stop invading my mentions, will stop coming here, that we can all laugh at them. It'll never happen. But even if they do come here to troll me, to troll you, to annoy you, you can choose to rise above it all by choosing chill and choosing Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right. I would love for I'm not even, it's weird to say, I'm not rooting against the Nuggets. I've said this many times. I have zero problem with the Nuggets. In fact, I really respect the way that they've built that team out around, you know, they pick a guy at the end of the second round and turns into this guy.
I feel like, Bree, you might want to bookmark this section because there might be a clippable segment coming up here from Kyle.
Nah. But I love rooting against the Denver fans. So we'll see what happens. That Western Conference, by the way, we'll get to this another day. But a lot of interesting series in first and second round. Very excited for that.
Yep. Let's get to a couple of super chats here to kind of lead into the conversation from practice. Ash Monroe, our good buddy Ash, always updating us on the results with Joel Embiid on the floor, says the 76ers have not lost a game in which Embiid has finished healthy since December 18th against the Chicago Bulls. The only thing they should be afraid of is Joel Embiid's health, because with him, they have been elite.
So tying into the practice component, we were there today talking to Nick Nurse, among others. The word that we got, full participation for Joel Embiid. Now, what does that mean for a practice the
especially
day
at
after
this time
a
of
game?
year? Yeah.
Full participation could just be, hey, you were there for the walkthrough.
He sat on the chair while they were watching game video last night.
Now, I will say, I did hear some tunes. I was there pretty early today for reasons that have nothing to do with the Sixers, but I was there pretty early. So I was there as the music got going at Sixers practice. We know Nick Nurse, a big guy, playing some up-tempo. I believe they played Kool and the Gang. They played some Jimi Hendrix. They always play Prince toward the end of practice with no slow jams. So it didn't seem like a walkthrough only type of day. If Joel was a full participant and DeAnthony Melton did not participate at all, it's at least good that Joel's out there amongst the people, getting the reps in, getting the work in. Whether he is fully healthy or not is another story. Like, they've been pretty evasive about, oh yeah, he's a full participant, but we got to take precautions on Sunday, right? And even though they were giving us a different message in the hours leading into the game, they ruled him out 45 minutes to an hour before Sunday. After having said Friday, yeah, it'd be nice to get him however many minutes on Sunday. So a little bit of mixed messaging, I think, hurting them here, but all signs point to Joel's ready to go for Wednesday, as ready as he's going to be. The question is really just, what is the percentage of Joel that are you getting 80% Joel? Are you getting 90% Joel? I think there's a big gap between that. 10% is meaningful, because I think we saw in spurts over the last week and a half or so, Joel, when he is feeling good prior to that scare in Friday's game, he's looking pretty damn good out there.
Yeah, and that's why I thought the game against Orlando with the passing, that is the one where I think it might take him a minute or two to get back into the flow of the game. The way he was able to pick them apart was real encouraging. Real encouraging.
All right. Derek needs to give us something to rally behind. This is from Coach Lowell Ricketts. # eat a shoe. If the Sixers reach the Eastern Conference Finals, don't be scared. Shoes are yummy with the right hot sauce.
That's right, Coach.
I would recommend the hot sauce from, of course, the chicken or the egg.
A week ago, Coach was worried about my health and said I shouldn't eat a shoe. And then I threw a little cold water on his Paul Reed and Joel Embiid tandem, and now he wants me to eat a shoe even though I didn't lose a bet. Well, come on, Coach. Come on.
Listen, it's a funny thing to think about. You just
give the
here
people something
with
man.
a fork and knife eating a shoe. Look,
they
guys,
wanted to see something else besides the win.
We will find a way to make Derek eat a shoe.
I didn't lose the bet. I'm not eating a shoe.
How worried were you though yesterday in the first quarter?
In all honesty, and look, I don't know what I was going to do if they did get the 6. I was hoping they got the 6 because A, I want to cover a long playoff run, and B, 1-game play-ins. Like I said, appropriate fear of a 1-game play-in. So no, I was rooting for them to pull it out. Yeah.
All right. What else yesterday and today, Kyle? Since you were at the arena, that Nurse say about DeAnthony Melton, and now we discussed it. Hey, it's great to have him back. How long is this going to be? And then he's not there. He plays the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like a little, all right, whatever kind of thing against Orlando. I mean, no, Orlando, it was Tuesday's game, but then we don't see him anymore, and it looks like
he played 5 minutes against Orlando, and then
was it Orlando?
Yeah, so he played 15 against Detroit. He played the 5 against Orlando, and then yesterday, Sunday, was the ruled out before the game. So here's what I would say. I think the problem, as Nurse laid out, is twofold. He said Sunday after the finale, DeAnthony has a tall task ahead of him to get ready for Wednesday's game. Not participating in practice whatsoever on Monday, it means you basically have to get all the work done Tuesday, clear all whatever the hurdles are, whether it's the pain symptoms, whether it's your lungs and your conditioning at practice, whether it's going through the scout, the game plan, the prep prior to the game. I'm sure DeAnthony was probably there to go through, whatever film work that they could possibly do today, prepping for Miami, but not the actual physical walkthrough and things of that nature. All that is now deferred to Tuesday and then Wednesday morning's shoot around. So that's bad. The other thing, and I thought it was important that Nurse pointed this out after Sunday's game, is that even if he gets through all that, we are talking about a guy who last week played a combined 20 minutes in 2 games and would be getting thrown back into a rotation role after most of these guys have been set in their roles with their lineup combinations for months. Like, it's one thing to make the big exception for Joel Embiid, who's one of the best players in the league, the reigning MVP, the biggest difference between them being a play-in fringe playoff team to a potential contender. And it's another for DeAnthony Melton, who I think we all value quite a bit. I think he is a potential difference maker as a role player on a very good team. But he's not a guy that you can just say, oh, yeah, we're going to give him unlimited runway. We're going to take minutes away from other guys who are either playing well or at least have settled into roles around Joel, around Tyrese, around the important players on this team, they're not willing to say, yeah, we're going to just test this out. We're going to let DeAnthony sort of work through whatever issues he has. Like that's not realistic. And so I think at this point, that's as big a problem for DeAnthony returning as any of the health related stuff, because not being ready for the play-in, you then, let's say you win on Wednesday, you beat Miami. Are you then throwing DeAnthony in there in a rotation role against the Knicks, who are, one, they're very physical. So a guy who right now is dealing with back issues and back pain, that could flare up and knock him out of the game at any time. Or do you want to go into the playoffs with, we're trimming down from 10, 11 guys to like an 8-9 man rotation? It's just very hard for me to see him carving out a role as they move into the postseason. And again, we've said it many times, it's a real shame because, one, he'd be a helpful guy if he's healthy. And two, for him, he's in a contract year. He's gone from potential payday to like, what happens with him next year?
Yeah. I'm not so worried about like changing people's roles, because quite frankly, over the last couple of months, roles have changed constantly. It wasn't just Joe out of lineup, but Maxey missed time, Tobias missed time. Like, you've been shuffling roles. Batum was in and out of lineup. Like, there's been a lot of change. There really isn't any kind of consistency. And I mean, Nick talked about it last week. He's like, look, some role players might be huge one series and not play at all the next series. That kind of change is going to happen anyway. I don't think you're going to see consistency on a series basis. My more concern is DeAnthony Melton's played in 5 games in the last 2.5 months. Getting him up to speed to the point where you could count on him in a role seems a little bit far-fetched. I think that is a bigger concern, at least from my perspective, than changing people's roles. Because like I said, I think changing roles is inevitably going to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks anyway.
And it was as cool as it was to see him back out there on the floor and kind of sped up. Not sped up because he was out for a lot of time, but just the messaging that was put out there beforehand. We weren't sure that we would see him again. And then he just popped up on the questionable on the injury report, and he played that night. But we also, as we watched him play that first game, we were still careful, number one, because we did discuss on the very next show that we had, hey, this guy's going to have to now come off the bench. Kyle Lowry starting. They'll figure out the Batum and the Oubre part of who else might be starting there. But DeAnthony Melton is now coming off the bench. But you looked at him possibly being a rotational guy coming off the bench with Hield and Reed, and you figure it out from there. That was promising in the event that he was able to hold up. But then we also started talking about where the back issue is a real thing, and you have to be concerned. I kind of gave Derek, you remember we were talking about my back issue, where it's like, hey, I kind of understand why the guy can't get out there and play.
Whenever we have somebody ailing from an injury, we always go to Devon as our correspondent.
Man. I got you covered. But that's the thing. That back issue is really tricky. So to Derek's point, you can't just throw him back out there in the mix and think you're going to get 15 to 20 minutes out of him. Solid defense, outside shooting, ball handling. What makes up the DeAnthony Melton game that fits so well with this basketball team? You're just not going to get that. And that's the unfortunate part, because now, again, where you were talking about, I remember when we discussed it, this Knox campaign out of the rotation, it probably pushes him back in there for maybe a small dose of minutes, but minutes in general, because you're going to probably need a ball handler at some point.
Yeah. Well, and so, like, look, if you get deeper into the playoffs, you're talking about him as like a campaign, who's on the line there. But if you're looking for wing athleticism, defense, maybe a little bit of shooting, do you have more confidence right now in playing Melton over like Ricky Council? Because Ricky Council has been playing, like, to throw a guy into the playoffs, even a vet with experience like DeAnthony, with absolutely no rhythm after months of injuries. Ricky he's got a lot of issues. We don't know if we can trust the shot. Certainly didn't coming into the season, although he's looked pretty good recently. But maybe you throw Ricky in there instead of Melton. Like, I don't know where Nick's head is at on that type of thing. And I think he typically has looked at Ricky further up the rotation in terms of like maybe more of a 3 or a 4 rather than DeAnthony being more of a hybrid 1-2.
Especially since he always compares him to KJ and their minutes, taking each other's minutes from each other.
But I'm not so sure at this point that they're going to play Melton over guys like that. I just don't know. Because you just can't trust that D'Anthony is going to be out there and be able to give you
Right.
what you hope to get from him.
Yeah.
At least with the other guys, there's a little bit of certainty that if you play them tomorrow or Wednesday or play them Saturday, Sunday in a potential playoff opener, that they'll be available to play the next night, that you can actually start to build towards something. I don't know. It's a bad problem to have, and I feel bad for D'Anthony because of the implications it has for him now and long term, but he's going to get passed by.
Nah, he is. And he might end up on a 1-year deal again, maybe coming back here for that very reason, especially if he feels comfortable with the training staff and all, trying to get him back out there on the floor. That's something, Derek, for you with the Melton piece. I know you briefly touched on it again on the post game, but looking at where he is now, and now Kyle bringing up the Ricky Council part, I bring up campaign. If you had to go into a game, let's say they do advance for the 7-game series, would you feel more comfortable with Ricky getting a few of those minutes, spot minutes for that very reason, or you just go with the campaign part?
Certainly.
For the ball handling, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit depends on the other 4 players on the court and where you are in the game and who's on the floor for the other team and all of that stuff. I would guess Nick Nurse will lean towards Cam more than he will Ricky.
I think so, yeah.
I like the size and physicality and the versatility that
I
Ricky
also don't
gives you.
want Cam on his own as a ball handler at any time.
He needs to be out there with one of those other two,
Yeah. But I think I would guess you will see more of Cam than you will of Ricky. I'll put it that way.
All right. On the Buddy Hield front, Nico Petruzella in the super chat. Derek, Buddy Hield, 4 threes tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm guessing. Yeah, Book it.
I mean, he might.
Let's go.
Well, you're not guessing. He might hit 4 threes at practice.
He will definitely make 4 in practice tomorrow, yes.
Yes. Well, let's shoot the Wednesday.
Look, I think Buddy's going to be a sneaky important player in this game because they do go zone, and Buddy's a great way to run them out of it. You need Buddy being aggressive, assertive, and make his shots. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But Nick Nurse has a quick hook with him, man. If the shot's not falling, he's taking them out.
He does.
Still keep him in, though?
I still think so. I think he's going to get the opportunity. I do.
And it was good for him to close out the third quarter the way he did yesterday. He had those 3 threes in about 60 seconds. And he got a shot going against the Nets on Sunday, and you hope that carries over for them.
And I'll say this, too. It's obviously good for Buddy. I'm not confident at all in this guy who we've talked about tons on the show. It was good for Tobias to get a good game in right before the playoff or the play-in. I have to keep parsing that, right? Like, it isn't the playoffs, but it kind of is. It was good to see Tobias have a nice scoring afternoon. It's against the sort of team that he tends to succeed against, all that. But he was shooting a bunch of threes, pull up and catch and shoot shots. I think he started the game 1 for 3 from 3, which that's normally a sign that you're not going to see another 3 the rest of the game. He did have a bigger role than he would have otherwise because Joel's out, Melton's out. He's a focal point of the offense, but he kept shooting. And as we've said many times on this show, we hammer him for this. He is a player whose confidence can really come and go. So for him, for Buddy, for those guys to get a little bit of momentum going before this, now the most important game of the season, I think is really important. And I'll say this, like, to circle back to the initial point of the show, like, are you afraid of the Heat? I think one thing you can put in the Sixers' favor, like, set aside the winning streak, I think that they've been in a pressure environment now for a couple of weeks. Like, they've needed to win all these games. They've had to win them in different ways. They've had to win them with different lineups. No Joel in San Antonio. No Joel yesterday. I know it's a banged up Brooklyn team with nothing to play for. We've said for months, you can't take any of these teams or these wins for granted. They have taken care of business when they've needed to. I think their approach to open games during this stretch has showed a level of seriousness that this has been a professional effort from all these guys for going on 2-3 weeks now. So they're not arriving to the play-in with like, oh, we just kind of limped to the finish line and we didn't have to play any important games. They played some huge ones down the stretch. So if anything, they've been stress tested a little bit leading into this. It shouldn't be that much of a jump from that game down in Miami or the game Friday night against Orlando. Those games were maybe not as important, but they're closer to a play-in level game than
they've been playing
some of these
playoff
games
basketball already.
Yeah. So I think that bodes well for Wednesday night. And certainly they're playing at home, right? Like, it's much better that they get to host this game. They get to sleep in their own beds, do their normal day of prep, rather than being tempted by the the allure of South Beach the night before the game. They handled
it well the last time to win on the road. So now that you're home, you're right, sleeping in your own bed and all that.
You want to make sure you don't have to deal with that Miami crowd. I mean, they're just
they show up so early. And
the one piece about Tobias Harris, he had 21 in 30 minutes on Sunday in the season finale, regular season finale. He had 21 and shot percentage-wise 8 for 15, knocked down 3 threes, 8 boards. But he still does the Tobias Harris stuff where, despite the numbers looking good, you look back and you're like, all right, but I remember this one play where he did this Tobias thing that drives you nuts. It's not kind of unfair. But then I'll push it back to last season, outside of game 6, where he went 1 for 4 in that game against Boston. Still, whatever. He played good defense.
You cannot talk about Tobias Harris's playoff track record without bringing up that very specific game.
Because that was bad.
I know.
That was really bad. You know why? And this is leading me to my point. He's played well in the playoffs these last 2.5 years.
First round, he's usually really good.
Really good. Yeah. And then he played good defensively against Jason Tatum in the second round, as good as you can against an MVP
He's played well
candidate.
Against Pascal in the playoffs. Like, he's had good moments.
Does that, yeah.
It's just usually in
and
April,
the other thing, too, you bring up Pascal. One of the things that really stood out in that 2019 series was their ability to use Joel as a roamer off of Siakam, and Tobias could guard Marc Gasol. Like, he can guard bigs situationally, and that's a look. I'm not saying that they're going to switch that matchup against Miami, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But there is a level of versatility in the front court that is certainly helpful in these type of games.
Yeah, yeah. So he's done good in the postseason. Let's hope he brings that early as they start the postseason on Wednesday against the Miami Heat. Final super chat here with us from our good friend Martian Lynch 33. Been burned many times. I ain't scared of the Heat. There you go. Are you afraid of the Heat? Are you worried?
Martian Lynch has spoken.
He's spoken.
It is known.
Done and done. Done and done. Finally, before we say goodbye and say goodbye to everybody, we didn't have a chance on Saturday to talk about it because everyone was busy, but it dropped finally. Go get him, Rick. Get that 4-year contract, Rick. And Ricky got the 4-year deal. Derek, can you break it down? Just under $8 million over 4 years. Non-guaranteed. He got extra money this year, about $800.
And then team option in 4.
Yeah. And he got a little more, got a money bump this year.
864.
Nice
864.
864. Which
is essentially, by the way, 864 for like one game.
For one game,
based on the timing of it, which is incredible.
Hey, you earned this $1 million almost. But we talked about it. What does this mean going forward for his future potentially here with the Sixers?
Well, it means that he's under contract. So he would have been a restricted free agent if they didn't offer him this contract or sign him to a contract. With this contract, he will count $1.9 million against cap next year, and then 2.2, 2.4. So all relatively low numbers. I don't think Devon mentioned it is non-guaranteed. I don't think you have to really worry about that because even if you cut him, you would then have a $1.2 million cap hold on your roster. So you're really only even saving about $700K in cap space for the cap space plan. I don't think you have to worry too much about him going anywhere. I did mention, a lot of people, why does it take so long? Why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long? Basically, it came down to Buddy Hield's contract. Buddy Hield had an $18.6 million guarantee, and then he had about $3.5 million worth of incentives. A couple of those incentives came right down to the wire. One of them, if he made 40% of his threes, he would have gotten about $370,000. Another one, if he finished top 10 in three-pointers made in the league, he would have got another $370,000. Sixers were right up against the luxury tax, but he also has incentives on making the playoffs, making the second round, third round, fourth round. So I think from the Sixers' perspective, you want to keep enough room under the tax that if you go into the NBA Finals, you're not going over the tax because you're of team success. So he basically had a bunch. They didn't know how much money they had to work with to give Ricky his deal until they knew whether or not Buddy would hit those 2 3-pointers made and 3-point percentage bonuses. When they found out he wasn't going to do that, they were able to offer him this $864K to get this long-term deal done. I do think it would have been funny if Buddy would have made like 14 threes in a row last night. They would have had been in the luxury tax, but that was a risk they were willing to take.
A friend of mine reached out a little bit after the deal was done and said the Sixers got a great deal that kid did not, because he's going to be pretty good in this league for years to come.
Yeah. Look, I think whenever you're talking about a two-way player who made was a two-way contract, I think about $560K. If you can be like, hey, we're going to give you $864,000 right now, they generally go like, yeah, I'll take that.
I will sign a deal right now if you say I will give you $864,000 right now. I don't even care what the deal says I need to do.
Happy for him, man.
That being said, like if he
Happy
continues to develop and that shot, and what's shooting like 35, 36% from three so far this year, I think limited sample, of course, but it looks better coming off than it did in college. If that is true, he will earn, like that will be a good deal for the Sixers.
And so we talked to Ricky in the locker room on Sunday before the game as the first time. He actually, weirdly enough, so Saturday we had a Sixers practice. Deal gets reported on. It was not official yet, but so a lot of us are there at the facility, and we're like, oh, great, we'll get to talk to Ricky right after we sign the deal. He had to go. He did like a merch or a card signing or something that day. So
I knew about
I don't think he was truly prepared.
It was he and Kelly Oubre.
Yeah, him and Oubre were at this. But hey, big day for him. He was at probably like the Deptford Mall, and then right after signing his big deal. But look, I'm super happy for Ricky. I'd like to think that we had at least a miniature part to play in his story this year and getting to this point. But he said the thing that he learned the most this year, making the jump.
Hold on, hang on. Let him finish the sentence.
It's just news Kyle's going to want to know. That's all I'm saying.
Finish the sentence. Come on, man. Finish the sentence.
Hold on. Oh, I see. Detroit Pistons.
Finish the sentence.
No.
We wanted to give you the whole time for that.
So Ricky said the big thing that jumped out, and he said he knows it's a cliche. It's what you would expect as a professional. It's just the relentlessness of the work as a pro, and that no matter what your role is, you just have to stay after it. Like his agent sat down with him. It's like, think about what your year has been like, right? Nick Nurse even said Saturday he wasn't very good at Summer League. Like we had decent expectations for him, wasn't very good. He lost his two-way contract temporarily, got cut in a series of moves to some rearranging of deck chairs, basically. But he ends up coming back after there was no interest elsewhere or whatever reason. He comes back on another two-way deal. He's down in the G League. He's fighting for minutes. Jeff Doughton gets a deal before he does.
Which, again, Jeff Doughton's deal was about $200K guaranteed with nothing guaranteed for next year. So Ricky's deal is much more significant than the one he got.
Ricky has a pretty established role for a moment, for, let's say, 5 games or so, and then he's back to end of the bench. And he said what he learned and what he kept in the front of his mind is to just control what you can control. And Tyrese Maxey said some really nice things about him over the weekend, where the gist of it was like Ricky came in training camp. Day one, I was like, I want to try to defend Tyrese. And Tyrese was like, all right, well, I'm going to show the rookie what's what. But every single day, Ricky kept trying to take on challenges, tried to lead by example. He didn't care if he was getting torn up or if he was having success. He wanted the best possible assignments that he could pick up because he wanted to learn from it and grow from it. And to me, that is a great omen for the rest of his career. Ricky wants to test himself, not against the guys at the two-way, at the G League type of level. He wants to prove himself against the best of the best. I hope he gets the opportunity to do it. And I would love to see Ricky have his first playoff moment, and his first playoff run would be really cool. Either really way, cool. Happy for him. Hope he continues on after this season.
If he can, it'd be nice if he could make a play, and we would remember it after the playoffs, because that guy has earned that, and we'll see where it goes from there. But the bigger news for Kyle Neubeck is the Detroit Pistons. They're doing it. They've heard you. You and Rich, they've heard you, and the Pistons fans.
Our long national nightmare is finally over. Someone will be hired above Troy Weaver at a minimum.
It's going to be wild when they end up with like Ed Stefanski again or some shit like that. It'll be absolutely wild.
They already want to fire Monty Williams.
Can you blame him?
Aren't there about 80 million reasons that they won't?
Yeah. He's the best paid coach in NBA history, and he stunk it up with the rest of them. So
the guy can't keep his job.
Important note on this news, by the way, it does not say that Troy Weaver is losing his
job.
That's
what I'm saying. He should not be able to keep his job.
As we saw with the Colangelo situation, that's usually not too far behind.
Yeah,
he should not be able to keep his job.
This did, by the way, I believe James Edwards at The Athletic had a version of this yesterday where he's like, they're entertaining it. So this is just further cementing reporting that is out there. But as somebody who has been on the what the hell is Troy Weaver doing bandwagon for a while, I'm glad that people who own the Detroit Pistons seem to have noticed what I did.
Here's the problem now. Tobias Harris is not going to get a max contract from the Detroit Pistons.
It's not our problem.
Yeah.
It's their problem.
It's Tobias's problem.
I have a Tobias sidebar I want to talk with you guys about off the air. Just by the way, nothing against Tobias himself.
After we just gave him some props for his defense in the playoffs. All right, let's get ready to get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow at 2:30. We think.
Oh yeah,
maybe
guys, you're gonna have to
wait. We'll tell you.
Deal with some instability this week as we figure out what
we don't know what's going on except for Wednesday.
Going into a meeting in 5 minutes. We'll let you know later.
Yeah.
But thank you to everybody here with us during the day. Daytime show, Heat Preview, Heat Fear show. Thank you to Rick Morse. Thank you to Kane. Slim Jim's man.
What up, Jim?
Martian Lynch 33, one of our good friends, one of our super chatters as well today. Ash Monroe, the number one Joel Embiid record statistician. Eugene Ross, our big hype man in the chat. We got Bootzilla.
Boots.
Aaron.
What up, Aaron?
No, I was going to say, I was waiting for it. My girl, Winona.
Nona.
We got Provolone John. Front running fan base.
Say that one, Derek.
Luke.
No, I'm not
what
saying
up,
that.
front?
No, there's
running.
no way.
It's fast.
What up to Luke? What up to K Red? What up to Elliot Vincent? The Hypothetical Man. Phi Chi. Dave. Alton Williamson. Who the hell is Devon Givens? Never heard of that guy in my life. Mm-hmm. We got Vic. We have the number one Kelly Oubre fan on earth. That's Phil W. But
Phil's
you already knew that.
What up, Phil?
We got Shahid. We got Chris B. Our guy Al. The 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
Young Steve-O. Love that. Coach Lowell Ricketts.
Coach.
Who are our other super chatters today, Bree? I'm forgetting right now. Oh, I already named all these people
and
except
Nico.
for Nico.
Yeah.
So shout out to Nico as well as all the other wonderful people. Ray Burrows, Alex McElroy. I think I'm getting close to the end of unique names here. There are a lot of you. Fusion.
What up,
Elaine
Fusion?
Bruno.
Lane.
Is that K. Rowley, Crowley, X26? You're going to have to forgive me on that one. That's a lot of things jumbled together. Mateus. Mary Overfield. We love Mary's a frequent visitor on Twitter, Instagram,
what up, Mary?
YouTube, whatever. Thank you, Mary, as always. Queese or Keese, one or the other. Anyway,
we like Keese.
I love you all. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon. Wow.
You got to make up because you got to make up
for
it.
That's a lot of bells.
Oh, that's true.
Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button on this video, maybe Jimmy Butler won't turn into Jason with a chainsaw on Wednesday and hack down
Tobias Harris over me.
Maybe. I can't promise anything. But if you hit the thumbs up button, it'll make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And you guys want to do that, right? So thank you, everyone, for being here today. We think we'll be here tomorrow, but we promise we'll tell you before our next show when we will be there and for how long.
We'll be around some point.
We will certainly be here after the game Wednesday.
Here's what I will say. If we are on tomorrow, it will be 2:30 to 3:30.
Correct. Yeah. So
yes. Follow us on our socials.
2:30, but just, follow
and like
our
and
socials.
subscribe, and then you'll get the icon, the sounder to let you know that we'll be there. Make sure you read Derek's piece, of course, on the contract with Buddy Hield and Ricky Council.
Every potential bonus Buddy had in there broken down to the dollar. If for some reason you're interested in that nonsense, go check it out.
And then
I got more work coming later today, tomorrow, the rest of the week. The writing is going to be picking up. I can promise you that. Anyway, guys, great to see you today. Hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.